Yesterday was the first day of the impeachment trial, but Tucker Carlson wasn't having any of that. Rather than cover it, he addressed the pandemic, arguing that orthodoxies surrounding masks and social distancing had evolved without explanation and that any dissent was immediately being silenced. Again, this is one of those really cowardly Tucker Carlson traits where he doesn't want to actually criticize a thing, but he wants to criticize those who criticize those who criticize the thing. So he's defending crazy people, but he's not brave enough to actually be a crazy person. Except that I've been telling you for a couple of months now, what is one of the things Tucker Carlson is gonna do to get his audience? And it is going to be that he's gonna turn against the vaccine. And people were like, come on, that's crazy. He's not gonna do that. Trump made the vaccine and it's what's gonna let us go back to normal. Why wouldn't that be a good thing? But I thought, no, it is too appealing to be able to get the crazies to follow him by saying, well, we're just saying maybe you shouldn't take it. Take a look, this is from last night on Tucker Carlson.
When are we finally gonna repeal Corona law? And what about this vaccine? Why are Americans being discouraged from asking simple, straightforward questions about it? Questions like, how effective are these drugs? Are they safe? What's the miscarriage risk for pregnant women, for example? Is there a study on that? May we see it? And by the way, how much are the drug companies making off this stuff? Well, there's nothing QAnon about questions like that. They're not conspiracy theories. They're the most basic questions. In a democracy, every citizen has a right to know the answer. But instead, we got fluff and propaganda. The media rollout for the vaccine came off like a Diet Pepsi commercial at the Super Bowl. Tons of celebrity endorsements, not a lot of science. It was totally disingenuous, and naturally, it had the opposite of the intended effect. Most Americans already supported vaccines. They didn't need to be browbeaten in order to be convinced. They were grateful their kids no longer get tetanus and polio and chickenpox. They weren't anti-vaxxers. And yet from the very first day, the way the authorities handled the COVID vaccine did not inspire confidence. If the vaccine was so great, why were all these people lying about it? Honest question. And they were lying. Clearly they were lying. You know that for certain.
Honest question. He's just an honest guy with questions. I mean, he's an honest, intellectually honest guy who said, if the vaccine is so good, why is the pandemic still here? Why did it immediately eradicate it when people don't have the shot yet? That is a thing that he said. So if you want to gauge how intellectually honest he is, honest question, that's all. The condescending overpronouncing of every word. And I'm just saying, why were they lying? They were definitely lying. No, this is such a classic right-wing tactic. They have invented a thing to be opposed to. And the thing they're opposed to is the media was just browbeating us to take it. What browbeating was going on? What lying was going on? Some people were happy that finally there was a vaccine for a thing that had killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. And you found that to be frustrating because you helped contribute to those deaths. Oh, everybody already supported it. Everybody's just naturally in support of it. And all I'm gonna do is gonna spend the next 6 months of my show saying, we should be asking questions and I just wanna know. And you'll notice that I'm not actually bringing any of the doctors on who did these trials. I'm not seriously finding out what the side effects are. I'm just gonna focus really heavily on anecdotal side effects. And I'm just gonna keep saying suspicion is totally warranted. These are basic questions, blah, blah, blah. So that anti-vaxxers will feel much more comfortable with my show than with others. And if it results in more people being questioning of the vaccine, it doesn't affect me. After all, he says he's gonna take it. And we know that all of them are gonna take it because they know how safe it is. He doesn't care if it ends up that some of his fans are exposed to more of the disease. If you want evidence of that, just watch any of his broadcasts over the last year. That has been the net effect of him during the pandemic, has been to make people naturally question masks and social distancing, the most basic things he's been against. So it is not shocking that the next thing that they were talking up during the early parts of the pandemic saying, we don't need to do all this other stuff, we're gonna get a vaccine. Now he's against that too. I told people it was coming and it is getting worse. It's not just him, by the way, Laura Ingram's been doing it too, but he's been consistently doing this now for more than a month.
I remember when Trump was nearing the end of his term, and then people were saying, wait till these Democrats and these libs, once he's out of office, suddenly they're gonna trust the vaccine. But when he's in office, they don't trust it. Well, because he's been lying, first of all, about like the rollout, exactly what it is, saying he developed it, all this other stuff that just, he's been manipulating information since the beginning. So that's the reason not to trust him. So fine, I'm actually okay with that argument. And you say, look how disingenuous these libs are. As soon as Biden gets in, they're gonna be taking the vaccine. So where are you on this side now? Are you flipped now? Did people predict, hey, wait until Trump is out of office and all these conservatives are suddenly gonna hate the vaccine? When previous to that, they were like, hey, we should name it the Trump vaccine. Yes, Geraldo said that. So that flip also happened. Let's make sure we point out the potential partisan nature of this from every direction that we can. Number one, if you watch enough Tucker Carlson, you realize, I always point this out too. These guys are talking through a teleprompter. This is not questions that he's really curious about. Just again, when you see him say, I just wonder, what about this? And what about that? He's not really wondering. Some producer wrote that in a teleprompter and he's reading it. Or maybe he's part of the people who write it. I don't know his nature of his production of his show, but either way it goes, that's a planned sentence that he is reading from a teleprompter. These questions are not questions. These questions are posed to make you think a certain way. Because we already know when Tucker Carlson has something he wants to say to his audience, he says it because he speaks to them like they're 4-year-olds. You should do this, and this is the way it is. They're doing this to you, and he tells them the way it is, the way he wants them to believe. These questions aren't questions he's looking for answers to. These are to make you not believe what you maybe would have believed before in a Seinfeld fashion. What is it about these vaccines? I'm wondering what's going on. What's up with that? What are you talking about? Now you have questions instead of directives towards your audience. This is, and also, by the way, he mentioned, you don't have to be a QAnon person to question these things. I remember a month ago, Tucker Carlson said this thing called QAnon. I thought he didn't know what QAnon was. Now it's a QAnon thing. Keeps going back and forth on whether or not he knows something or doesn't know.
Again, I'm very glad that you brought that up because he's not gonna come out and say QAnon is right, but he wants people who believe QAnon is right to watch his show. And so he just defends free thinking about QAnon. He won't actually say it's true, but he says, how dare you attack those who think it's true? He's not gonna say the vaccine will kill you, don't take it, but he wants anti-vaxxers to feel very comfortable on his shows. So he'll say, well, how dare they say that you shouldn't be spreading misinformation about autism and all that. It's this really cowardly thing where he wants to get them to watch his show, but he's not gonna ever say anything specific enough that you could actually link him to one of those things. He's just gonna spend the next couple months defending QAnon and the next couple months asking questions about the vaccine, which, as Jayar rightly pointed out, dude's got 1 billion producers. If he was really curious about these things, he wouldn't be reporting on his questions, he'd be reporting on the evidence they'd found. If he wants to know how much money they're making, he could have his producers figure that out and they can report on that. If they wanted to know what the actual side effects are, first of all that information's already available and you could definitely get the actual doctors who participated in it, or you have access to the White House briefings, as someone pointed out. Ducey Jr. could be asking your questions for you. You're not interested in the actual answers. You're interested in asking the questions. That's all. And for his own personal profit. He wants the biggest audience possible. And it doesn't matter if that leads to more people's families being torn apart because people believe in satanic conspiracy theories, or if more people get sick and die because they're not gonna take the vaccine. He doesn't give a damn about that. He's a rich guy looking out for his own interests. That's all he is. All of it is tools to that end. Everything from white supremacy to the anti-vaccine to QAnon to the constant misogyny, all of that stuff is just tools for him to maintain in a position of power and wealth. That's it.
I want to point out one more small thing about this production work. So they just had a bunch of shakeups at Fox News, and networks go through that where they'll shake up a show and send a host there, and someone gets a new show. That happens all the time. Anchors, producers, all that, they pay attention to those things because that's their job. Like, what's gonna happen with this show? If TDR is like gets shifted around and suddenly it's the Francesca show, John's gonna be like, well, damn, what happened? What did I do? Because if you see that happening around you, you might go, let me make sure I formulate my show to be something that's solvent, something that hangs on, something that moves with this ever-changing political spectrum and nature. Not be honest with my audience. Let me just hold on to them. Because if I don't hold on to them, I'm gonna lose my show, or it's gonna be changed in some kind of way. So that's on the forefront of these guys' minds. It's their career, it's their money. He doesn't care about what's actually gonna go on with people's lives. He's doing this as a nice way, as you mentioned this whole time, keeping an audience or cultivating a new one. Because as long as you say, I'm the number one, which they always like to talk about, you still have a job and you're still making your millions.
I'd say that when you laid out this hypothetical where Francesca takes over, the fact that Francesca's face is all over the chat, that does not give me a lot of confidence. So thanks a lot for that, everybody.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.